has done since then in support of the Blitnikoffs and getting their word out and helping women. So it will be interesting to see in terms of Trent Brown. I don't think he's practiced the last few days. They're saying it's a calf strain. Maybe it is. He started all 5 games and he played in London and they had a bye week. So you can, on one way, look at it and say it's very interesting that they have held him out of practice after this lawsuit came out. Or maybe he has a strained calf and he'll be in Green Bay playing. I don't know. But anytime domestic violence comes up, it's a serious issue, or it should be with the league. We can argue all day on whether they have been hard enough on players. I don't believe they have. But with specific to the Raiders, they're very intimately involved because of the Blitnikoff situation with domestic violence. So it'll be interesting what they do with Trent Brown, if anything.
Right, very interesting. And also the NFL, I'm assuming, will have some sort of inquiry as to it. But like you said, because it's not a criminal case, it is a civil case, it may take much more of a lengthier process for anything to get done, right?
Yeah, because now you're going to, with criminal cases, I think you can, detectives and investigations and witnesses in a civil case, the people would, have to be agreed to be interviewed, starting with the woman who claims to be the victim in the civil case, and then Trent Brown and anyone else who would have anything substantive to offer. In 2014, Roger Goodell, as the commissioner, came out and put down that first offense domestic violence, automatic 6-game suspension, second ban for life. They haven't always stuck to that because of what they say can be mitigating circumstances, and a lot of times they've come back off 6 and given much lesser penalties. That's why. And I wrote it for the paper today, unless TMZ happens to have a video with harsh evidence, they seem to go still light on domestic violence. So I hope that changes in the future, as what it will mean for Trent Brown. We don't know, because they're going to have to investigate this and see if there's anything there.
Yeah. Well, we actually do have some good news as well for the Raiders right now. Darren Waller, tight end, leading right now in receptions for the Raiders. He was signed to a contract extension through 2023. I believe the figure was $9 million. Yeah. So this is a positive. Somebody who went through a lot of trials and tribulations early on, was suspended for the entire 2017 season, got on the Raiders practice squad, and here he is making big waves. What do you have to say about this and the contract extension here?
Well, for a team that I think that lost Jared Cook in the offseason in New Orleans and really didn't know coming, you have the Foster Moreau, you have the rookie, but coming in, I don't think they were really sure what was going to happen at tight end. And now, 5 games in, they've already given their tight end an extension because I think he's deserving and he's played really well. It's a great story for what he's overcome personally with his substance abuse and the suspension. And this is one of those stories you want to hear, the headlines you want to see, a guy overcoming his demons to this point. Hopefully that will always continue. But it means, you'll see Darren Waller in Las Vegas next year for sure with this contract extension. He's played really well. And I think if you'd have told him at the beginning of the year, because Jared Cook was such a huge part of the team last year offensively, hey, Waller's going to play as well as to where by week 6 you're going to extend him, the Raiders would have taken that every day.
Yeah, I like what he's done with the team, and we're looking forward to seeing what he can do in Green Bay, because there's going to be a lot of things here with the players. Yeah, but we have to first, before we get into Green Bay, go back and revisit the Raiders win in London against the Chicago Bears. That was pretty tremendous. A lot of people were counting them out, Ed. What did you make of this impressive victory here?
I think it was terrific in all facets. I think no one expected them to run the ball against the Bears because no one really does, and they did. Everyone expected the Bears to be the one pressuring the quarterback, and it was the Raiders getting 4 sacks, Bears getting none. They controlled Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack had a fumble recovery, and the only reason he did that was a miscommunication between Derek Carr and his running back, Josh Jacobs, who had a tremendous game, or Khalil Mack doesn't even get that fumble recovery. So they played well on all facets. I thought it was, and I've said this often on both the radio and in print, it was, to me, the best called game by John Gruden since he's been Raiders coach for a second time. The call to Moreau in the last drive in the flat that went for like 36 was a tremendous call. Had the Bears completely fooled. So I thought for the Raiders, it was a terrific win. And, they didn't get helped by the referees on a personal foul that nullified an interception. But they drove to win it against a really good defense, one of the best defenses in the NFL, and they absolutely deserve to feel good about themselves after that win. And from what we've seen now in the West, Kansas City dropping a few, I have no idea what's happening with the Chargers. Denver, we kind of knew wasn't that good. They're kind of in it to contend a little now. I mean, it's early, but if someone would have said, looking at that schedule, 5 games in, they're going to be 3-2. I don't know if many people would believe that. I certainly wouldn't have. I thought this was a really tough game to go win in London.
Absolutely. 24-21 the final. The Raiders, like you said, second right now in the AFC West. I wasn't expecting that. If somebody would have told me that, I would have said, no way. I thought they were going to come out of this stretch where they're on the road for all this time.
I didn't know if they'd win a game. I've got to be honest. Especially, and remember, they started with just a blowout loss in Minnesota. We were like, whoa. And now you're looking at all those other road games. I mean, I don't think anyone, other than really the greatest fan of the Raiders would have said, oh, yeah, now they're going to go beat Indy. Oh, yeah, now they're going to go win in London. I don't know if many people said that, so it's a credit to them that they were able to do that.
Very much so, and we will see what happens as they head into Green Bay, going to Lambeau Field here to take on the Packers. Right now, though, Ed, I mean, I can't really see, I don't know, the whole scape of everything with Lambeau, that anybody goes in there and has a good game. But I think right now, if Gruden can call the game the way that he did in London, then maybe we see an uptick here and the Raiders keep this thing going. But I mean, Josh Jacobs, they were really successful with them against the Bears defense. Do you think that that's kind of what they're going to deploy here when they head into Green Bay?
Well, I think they need to, because they need to keep who off the field and Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, you know who.
Lambeau's a tough place to play, we know it, and yet I think the Lions win last week if the officials keep the flags in their pockets as they should with phantom calls down the stretch. So you can go in there and win. People have. And the Raiders, I think, what's the number 7 or 8 around town? I think a little money's going towards the Raiders. I would be surprised if they're not in this in the fourth and not continuing, if in fact they can run the ball like they did last week, or 2 weeks ago, because of the bye. I mean, look at Josh Jacobs through 5 games has already broken Marcus Allen's record for most yards from scrimmage by a running back in his first year at the franchise. He's a terrific young back. Their offensive line, now we don't know about Trent Brown. Let's just assume he's playing. Gabe Jackson's limited, but he's back at practice. So This is the first time this year they could have the entire offensive line back, which they thought going in would be a strength. Richie Incognito, Colton Miller in his second year, Gabe Jackson back, Trent Brown. I mean, the best center in football. I mean, so it could be the first time they have that. If they can run the ball like that and keep Rodgers off the field, it's a tough game to go win. Lambeau's a tough environment. It's going to be mildly cold. We're looking at 40s, which in Green Bay, it's not that bad.
It's like almost a nice little Indian summer.
Little wind, little air. You and I are going to go with Adam Hill on Friday to do a story on Lambeau. I'm really looking forward to that. You set that up for us. We're really excited about learning about the history of Lambeau Field and Lombardi. We have a address to Lombardi's home. I think it's below a bar. We might be knocking on someone's door and get thrown out on. I think the goal is to get in the house, but I'm sure there's been a million people who've tried this, and I don't think we're getting in, but we'll try. But yeah, I think it's a game that they can go and compete to win. I mean, unless they a lot of 3 and outs and Rodgers gets it going, it can snowball, no pun intended, in Lambeau. It can, because he's so good. But if they can run the ball like they did against the Bears, I'll be surprised if they don't get to the fourth quarter. Like, all right, it's anyone's game.
Right, like they were barely touching Carr. Khalil Mack, the Bears, the defense, that was all vaunted throughout the whole week.
Sure.
But nobody touched Carr.
And I think it got to them a little. I think they didn't say it out loud, but if you're a professional athlete and you have the pride of professional athlete, and all you are hearing, even in London every day, is Khalil Mack, how are you going to stop them? Defense. After a while, like, all right, this is you, Khalil, or, to heck with you. I mean, I think at some point as a professional athlete, these guys said that during the weeks, like, you know what, let's go. And then they went out and proved it. And I don't think they'll hear as much about Rodgers, because Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks ever in the history of the game. They know that, and they're just going to be complimentary of him as they should be. But I'm sure they're also saying, okay, so last week they played, or 2 weeks ago they played the best defense, supposedly, one of the best defenses. Now they beat them. Now it's like, okay, but how are you going to handle one of the best offenses? Yeah. So there's always a week-to-week motivation within the game. And I think this week the motivation is, hey, you're going to have to outscore him. Hey, you can't stop that guy. Well, now they get to prove they can.
Are we thinking, though, the Raiders use this bye week to get everybody healthy? There's a lot of little injuries that are kind of coming up, especially like Tyrell Williams
is a concern. Plantar
fasciitis.
Yeah,
My
I don't like to
has
say
that.
it right,
Plantar
and I certainly don't want it.
It's really painful.
Yeah, I have
it's
enough
hard
issues.
To walk. Yeah.
I go to the gym and find I have enough issues. I don't need plantar fasciitis or whatever it is. But every time I've heard that with an athlete, this just in, it's never good. So you don't want that. There's certain things like you want to read about yourself and you don't want those words. That's one of them. So I don't know if he's playing. I mean, that's a bad injury. They're obviously short at receiver. But their tight ends played well. I think they need to probably go into this game thinking that Carr needs to do the same thing, which is 1, stay clean and keep them protected, but 2, 8 receptions to the tight ends, 5 or 6 to the wide receivers, 5 or 6 to the running backs. And you have to spread around, and then you have to run the ball. You have to manage things better. When you're this short at wide receiver and you just don't have a guy who can at any play break it, then it comes down to just managing things and trying to keep the defense off balance. John Gruden has to have another well-called game this week for them to win, and there's no reason he can't do that. He's had 2 weeks to prep. It's a short week for Green Bay, who played on Monday night. So other than being on the road, there's really, the Raiders have a lot of things that you would construe as advantages here. Rest, time to prep, short week for Green Bay. they should be in the game. If they're not, it's a little disappointing, I think, given how it plays out, because they have some things going for themselves other than getting on a plane once again and having to go somewhere.
Okay, so we talked about keeping Aaron Rodgers off the field. How are the Raiders going to move the ball and keep him off so that they can keep scoring?
Same way, run the ball with Josh Jacobs. Run the ball and keep him off the field. And if you can do that, and it's not, look, Heidi and I like to, we like to break down and split the atom and become geniuses every week, but we're not saying anything anyone doesn't know. Here's the thing. Keep Aaron Rodgers off the field.
Yeah.
That's never been said before in the history of football.
Never.
Keep Aaron off the field.
Not once.
Exactly. So we're not saying anything everyone else does, but it's 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 the whole thing about sports writing. It's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason because it's usually true. Well, how do you keep him off the field? You run the ball. So 90, whatever percent of people who've gone into Lambeau have tried to do that and probably haven't.
Yeah.
But if you can be in that 10% who can, then you're in the game. So they had to figure out in the last 2 weeks how to do it.
All right, we have some more news out of the bye week. The season-long suspension of Vontaze Burfict was upheld by the NFL. So, I mean, is this a surprise at all? And how do the Raiders react?
I thought he was going to be upheld even before they found the second bad hit in the same game. Once they absolutely, and here's the thing, they obviously wanted this to stand up because they had someone deep in the bowels of the dark room at the NFL office go through every play in that game and watch this guy specifically, and they came up with the other really bad hit away from the ball, helmet to helmet. It was not a good hit. Once they came out with that, it was over. They went searching. They wanted to uphold it. They have suspended him several times. You knew when they gave him the first disciplinary letter on the suspension when they said, "We have warned you. We have told you." At that point, I'm like, I don't think this is, he's not winning this on appeal. They want him suspended. They believe he's a dirty player. Now, you can argue one way or not if you think he is. But he's been suspended several times for this kind of stuff. So they wanted it upheld. Once they did the due diligence or the extra work to go find another hit, then you knew it was being upheld. So I know the Raiders aren't happy about it. I know John Gruden doesn't agree with it. But you got to move on. It is what it is. And whatever happens with Vontaze Burfict in the future, whether he's here in Vegas or not, or they move on from him, that's a decision they're going to have to make. But for now, he's done for the year.
We have an interesting question here from Twitter. It's, on YouTube, sorry. ADS Aaron. He wants to know, why make this show live? What is the benefit? I just thought we'd answer it because he threw it out there.
Why is this show live?
I think it's for you guys, so that you can throw us questions in real time.
So we can have questions like that in real time.
If something happens.
We don't want to answer questions hours later. That and the fact our producer Larry Mirror prefers live. Because if we're on tape, I do too many takes and I bug him enough to where he's got to do other things. This way live, no matter what mistakes we make, it's going to be done and over with. Larry can get on with real business.
Yeah.
So it's mostly for Larry at this point if we want to be true.
Shout out to the producer. All right, so that'll be it here for this Vegas Nation.
So much for live.
Mailbag. Yeah, that's live, baby. So you want to get a hold of us, find Ed on Twitter at Graney. I am at Heidi Fang. We'll be back after we head to Green Bay, where the Raiders again take on the Packers. And keep in touch with us all the time on everything Raiders with the Vegas Nation app and on vegasnation.com.
Pack your parka, kid. It's going to be cold.
Oh, yes.